8
months in the making, baby. Okay, let's do some quick catch-up. FNAF, multimedia franchise. Shoddy apparel, video game. Mnaf, Minecraft FNAF roleplay by Caveman and Ant. Ant died, now only Caveman. Okay, let's frickin' go! Also, we're already 3 seasons deep into this thing, so if you haven't already, go and watch part 1. Okay, now let's actually go! Mnaf Origins is certainly a series. Okay, surely I can do better than that. Origins is a series that perplexes me. I'm not quite sure if I like it or not. I don't have any strong feelings about it, which seems to be quite common. Even someone who worked on it forgot about it. Caveman Films never even gave it its own playlist, for Christ's sake. Even Starlight has a playlist, and he freaking hates that one. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'll have anything to say. Wait, what do you mean I wrote 16.5 pages on it? Well then, Night 1. Night 1 starts with the ending scene of Mnaf 3, which is good because this takes place directly after that scene, so it's a good recap for people who may have forgotten what exactly happened. We then find Dan awakening in a stylistically very different place, and there's a grandfather clock, for some reason. The stylistic difference is because this series is the beginning of the FNAF Universe saga, which only consists of this season and Starlight, which is the best one. But since this series went a tad mod crazy, we now have fancy furniture and stuff, such as the out-of-place grandfather clock I mentioned earlier. Back on topic, we see Ant's empty hospital bed, cause in case you forgot, he's very dead. We then find Dan shooting awake from his bed in a drugged and painful daze. He looks around only to find blood pools littering the room, which rightfully freaks him out. He looks to his IV drip, which was the source of his drug-induced Disneyland trip. He's disturbed at the thought. I mean, hey, I would be too. Didn't even get a funny hat. He quickly remembers his best friend Anthony and calls out to him. He only finds Ant's emerald skirt surrounded by puddles of blood. Also Carl! He hears rumbling in the vents and proceeds to hide behind some curtains. He peeks out to find a new animatronic, Baby, wandering from vent to vent, and man, has she gotten a facelift. Seriously, I don't like how she looked in Fun Park. She looked too much like frickin' Clarence, I don't even know. He decides to go through the vent the animatronic came through. He shimmies his way through the vent only to find it leads to some kind of storage room. He walks further into the room and finds Funtime Freddy. He looks for a tunnel behind a poster, questioning if it will be like Shawshank. Though, seeing as how I have no interest in seeing Dan crawl through a tunnel of human waste, I'm fine with it not being like Shawshank. He finds a switch behind a desk. He haphazardly flips it, causing all the lights to shut off. He quickly flips it back on, but the light also seems to have awakened Pinky over here, who proceeds to jump scare our dear cave dweller. He quickly scurries back into the vent, laughing at how the oversized animatronic can't fit in the small vent. But wait, how did Baby fit in the vent? Dan sees that sadly, animatronics still want to eat his skin. He heads back to the original room, but realizes that the only way to go now is through the other vent, which, might I remind you, is the one Baby went through. So you can imagine Dan's hesitance. Whilst doing so, he notes how ridiculous his story sounds. I mean, if a drugged man came up to me screaming about how he was taken captive by a 9 feet tall purple guy who wanted his pure soul to bring back his dear Amelia, and that his friend was thrown into lava after an intense overdose, and that he was being hunted by knockoff Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, yeah, I probably wouldn't believe him. When he comes out on the other side, he finds Golden Freddy, whose appearance frustrates Dan. Personally, I'm also peeved, because Golden Freddy isn't important in the slightest throughout this series, so why is he here? There's no joke, that is a genuine question. He sees that the limp yellow bear is guarding a key. He opens the door only to find some skeletons. His favorite. When Dan grabs the key, he finds that Golden Freddy has disappeared, which naturally freaks Dan out. As soon as he was here, he was gone. He questions what the key is for, remembering how the locked door didn't have a keyhole. He climbs a ladder in the vent, and upon reaching the top, he finds a maze. For some reason, upon reaching the end of the maze, he finds Foxy, who happens to be guarding a switch. For some reason. The switch turns on the light in the Scuffed Pirate's Cove, and in the distance, Dan hears a door open, though Foxy seemingly stays deactivated. Dan walks away from Foxy, though upon looking back, he finds Foxy sprinting out of his cove and after him. Despite this chase's shoddy setup, it's still pretty fun. Hey, even Baby's enamored with the scene. Dan even pops a squat behind the grandfather clock. Dan is eventually chased down the hall where he quickly uses the key to get through the exit door. He realizes that he who controls the key controls the power. He takes a bite out of a cookie sitting on the table, but quickly finds that it is unbelievably stale. He opens the exit of the room, but finds Shadow Bonnie looming at the end of the hall. We cut to Ronaldo laughing as he watches Dan on the monitors, claiming that everything is going according to plan, saying that soon he'll be able to see Ophelia again. Whoever that is, before the screen fades to black. Night 2! Night 2 starts with a shot of Ronaldo watching something on the monitors. We see that Ronaldo is watching back footage of him torturing and overdosing Anthony. We see Ant covered in his own blood as he writhes in pain and agony and, well, I don't want to be too forward, but torment? Too soon? We then see Ant's body go limp. Ronaldo then begins to drag his lifeless body across the ground, leaving a streak of blood as he slowly brings the body out of the room. His cackling growing in volume, showing his clear enjoyment from the unneeded tragedy he's just caused. What a quirky, fun start to Night 2. Love it here already. We cut back to the now where we see Baby stepping into Ronaldo's surveillance office. We zoom in on Ronaldo's face as he tells Baby, "You know what to do." I had to watch that clip 3 times because I actually had no clue what he was saying. YouTube subtitles didn't even think it was human speech, and sadly, I can't argue with that. Eventually, the series would add its own subtitles for Ronaldo, but for the time being, this is what we're stuck with. We cut back to where we left Dan. He stares down a dark Bonnie-shaped figure looming at the end of the hall. It calls out to him in an all too familiar voice.
Dad!
Ant? Ant? Is that you? Oh, it's gone!
That's right, it's Ant's voice. But that can't be possible. We literally just saw his definitive death for the 2nd time. He can't be back! The Shadow Bonnie disappears to the dismay of Dan. He chalks up his vision of Shadow Bonnie as simply some kind of hallucination. I blame the cookies, personally. Dan heads down the hall and finds a narrow hall leading to a room. His nose catches a whiff of something. He finds that whatever is giving off the smell actually smells like barbecue. But sadly, he doesn't find the American Dream and actually finds a lava-fueled incinerator, with the charred remains laid about to really get the point across. Maybe cannibals have a point, I don't know. He finds a switch to open the door. Upon heading through, he finds a smolderingly hot room with lifeless animatronic husks hanging from the ceiling like corpses. He leans over the rails to see a literal river of lava that flows through this hellscape of a room. This room is really cool, so I will suspend my disbelief. Rule of cool and all that junk. Dan finds withered Bonnie sitting on a platform. He looks left of Bonnie to see a Foxy animatronic turning his head toward him. As he begins to back away, the Foxy begins to chase him. This seems familiar. This chase ain't as fun as before. Dan just hides in a vent. When Dan finally thinks himself free, he's attacked by the thought-to-be deactivated withered Bonnie. Dan quickly rushes away from it across the bridge towards the exit door. He stumbles through it with the finesse of a drunk pilot, but he sticks the landing. He looks down the hall to see a Freddy lying on the floor with half of its body hidden around the corner. Dan decides against approaching the corpse and heads into the men's room to hide. He sits on the toilet with the open stall, reasoning that an animatronic wouldn't bother someone on the toilet. He hears the bathroom door open. The Freddy that was once lying lifelessly on the floor slowly inches its way to the end of the room, walking past Dan in the process. Dan peeks out of his stall only to find that the Freddy has completely disappeared. Much to Dan's shock and confusion, Dan stumbles down the hall to see a lovely room of death. I mean, a room full of all the versions of Freddy. Or the versions of Fredbear if you want to be a dweeb. There's a plot hole here, where Dan name drops Funtime Freddy even though canonically he should have no idea what that toad-sounding beauty is called. He speed walks over to what he thinks is an exit, but finds it's actually an elevator. A locked elevator. He notices the Freddy standing at the end of the hall, which naturally startles him. He backs away and finds Golden Freddy hanging around once again. Still unimportant, he rushes past him and steps into some sort of breaker room. He does the Resident Evil puzzle, does the breaker or whatever, and opens the elevator. Hooray! He immediately admits to just randomly pressing the buttons, so I guess this is Resident Evil 4. I don't know why this puzzle is even here. To break up the episode, I guess, but this is the only one of its kind. He steps into the elevator, and as he closes the door behind him, the Torador march begins to play, much to Dan's displeasure. When the elevator stops, Dan steps out to find Baby behind a window. She states that the show will begin momentarily, before the episode ends. Night 3. Night 3 starts with a shot panning down what seems like a recreation of the main room and sister location. We then see Baby from behind staring at a pair of double doors through a window as Dan steps through them. Dan walks up to the glass as Baby states, "The show is about to begin," which is not what she said at the end of the last episode. Dan, how could you be so reckless? I'll tell Mom. Dan naturally responds with a, "Wait, what?" Baby states that she's not like the others, that she knows who Dan is. She says that she knows about his friend and that she can help him, but only if he helps her. She says that she is trapped there, that it's where he sends all malfunctioning animatronics to be scooped. Naturally, she doesn't want to be scooped. She says she doesn't deserve it. Of course she would say that. Dan begrudgingly agrees to help her out. Dan questions how she'd be able to help him since, she's trapped in the room and all. But she says that he'll still be able to hear her, which just gives me the image of Baby screaming at the top of her lungs. "Take a left!" Baby states that this section has been sealed off for many years, that it was a warehouse for a very popular restaurant, not unlike Fazbear's Pizza.
I guess you could call it a sister location.
Okay.
Ooh, she said the thing. She said it. Dan heads down the hall and steps into Funtime Foxy's room. She tells Dan to move slowly and quietly across the floor. Dan tries to comply, but quickly grows impatient and sprints to the vent. Funtime Foxy sprints and screams at him, but thankfully, Dan barely makes it to safety. Dan finds himself in a recreation of the main room and sister location. Yeah, that's right, we went from originality to simply adapting sister location. Get over it and move on, we gotta keep going. Dan crawls over to Bellora's room. Baby is about to introduce this room as what sounds like Mother's room, but she quickly corrects herself and says that it's Bellora's room. After some unneeded hassle, he makes his way to the other side and finds himself in a breaker room. As Dan enters the room, Baby tells him to reset the breaker and set her free. Though Dan's attention is caught more by the return of Funtime Freddy, who he still shouldn't know the name of, but who cares? Me, I care. Dan manages to reset the breaker, though sees that Freddy has disappeared. Hooray! Baby tells Dan to head back to the main room. She tells him that he'll receive freedom in a super trustworthy voice. This is where the meme goes. This is where it goes. You know that meme you made? This is where it goes, my guy. You did a good job. That's a funny meme that you've held on for like 5 months. I don't know. When did you make that? I'm gonna say a swear. Dan heads back to the control room, but is confused when Baby's not there. His head then shoots back really suddenly, which makes me think that Baby pulled his hair really, really hard. We fade to black as we see Okay, this is dumb. A guillotine for some reason? Who cares about how it stylistically clashes? Look, a guillotine! We see Dan chained up to the wall next to the guillotine that I'm pretty sure exists solely to infuriate me. And his hands aren't actually attached to the chains, but that doesn't actually matter, so we'll move past that. Just this once. We zoom in on Dan as we hear Ant's voice again, attempting to call out to Dan yet again. We cut to Ronaldo sitting at his desk hitting Ballora with a hammer. Baby walks in. Ronaldo looks at her and states that preparations are almost complete, that soon Amelia, Baby, will get to see her mother again, Ballora. I keep forgetting that this series made that theory canon. It's especially weird since it's not a very good theory. It's also not very important and it's barely mentioned. Anywho, we cut back to Dan still chained up to the wall. Ant once again calls out to Dan. He says that Dan needs to get out of there. As Ant calls out to Dan more and more, Dan's eyes shoot open. Night 4! We open to see that Dan is still chained up on the wall. He wakes up as we see Shadow Bonnie standing in front of him. Shadow Bonnie, who is clearly Ant, is overjoyed that Dan is awake. Ant tells Dan that there's a reason Ronaldo hasn't killed him yet, telling Dan that he needs to escape. Ant frees Dan and leads him to a vent. Dan goes into the vent, but when he looks back, Ant is gone. Dan doesn't approve of this, describing it as spooky ghost stuff. Seeing as Ant is just gone, Dan proceeds through the vent, thinking over Ant's words, not knowing exactly what he meant when he said that Dan needed to put an end to this. He guesses that he probably needs to kill Ronaldo, but that is much easier said than done, since he's, crazy. Ant tells him that the door at the end only opens at 6 a.m. Ant tells Dan one more needlessly cryptic thing as well. Beware of the nightmare. Dan rightfully asks what the heck a nightmare even is, but gets no response. Dan sneaks around the patrolling Ronaldo, who asks Dan if he wants to be part of their family, which he clearly does not. Dan quickly heads to the exit door. I don't know why this facility has so many exit doors when none of them lead to an exit. Without any other options, Dan is forced to head into the animatronic R&D facility. And as we've all seen throughout the series, research and development rooms are always safe and I'm sorry, I can't say it. Dan finds 3 doors, one reading Project Toys, which is boarded up, as I guess not to be redundant, Season 2 already did the toys, so. The next says Observation. Dan finds a button and a door, neither of which work. Also, my assumption is that this is where Ronaldo was watching those monitors, but it is not confirmed. Dan approaches the final door, reading Project Nightmare. Wonder what's in there. Dan finds a room with Plushtrap lying on a table. He calls Plushtrap kinda cute. And I strongly disagree, because Plushtrap is gosh darn adorable. I did not just say gosh darn. You better appreciate my lack of swearing in this video, Mr. Man Films, I swear to God. Dan sees a shadowy figure through a window. It's not doing anything, it's just watching. I think it's Shadow Bonnie, but I don't know. I don't want to look at it anymore. Dan heads through a pair of double doors, but upon entering is quickly startled by Nightmare Fredbear. Dan is frozen with a mix of confusion and fear as he looks at the big boy with the tummy mouth. No, not him. It looks over at him, triggering Dan to quickly hide under a desk. It begins. Just as he does this, Ronaldo wanders in, stating that he knows he's in there. Ronaldo asks if Dan has seen his nightmare round, claiming it as his proudest achievement. Ronaldo takes a seat at the desk Dan's hiding under, and describes the nightmare as a soul that always experiences torment. Dude, same. Ronaldo soon leaves, allowing Dan to re-emerge, though the nightmare soon begins its pursuit. Dan backs away as the nightmare phases through the wall. This is just a consequence of using the FNAF Universe mod, since the animatronics are really tall, but he points it out like every time, and I think that's funny. It also makes it canon. He hides under the conveniently placed desk in the hall, and seeing his chance when the nightmare turns its back to him, he makes a run for the room with all the crates. Dan avoids Ronaldo and makes his way into a security checkpoint of some kind. Dan finds a switch in there which opens the door, but the sound alerts Ronaldo. Ronaldo screams, asking where Dan went as he quickly hides under another desk. Man, that's like the theme of this episode, that's the 3rd time. Ronaldo enters the room and calls Dan, Danny boy, and that made me very happy. Ronaldo flips the switch to close the door as he asks Dan if he wants to join his friend Ant for eternity. But unlike me, he said it in a cool, non-lame way. Dan gets up from the desk and re-flips the switch. He finds that through the door is an area that just kinda looks like a regular house. Dan finds himself in a kitchen-type area. To avoid the nightmare, Dan hides out in the Plushtrap minigame area for a bit. If it wasn't clear before, we're in FNAF 4 now. So yes, we've gone from sister location to FNAF 4. More on that at the end. Dan sees that he has to survive for 3 more hours as it's 3 a.m. And in case you forgot, the door opens at 6 a.m. for some reason. Dan overhears Ronaldo. Ronaldo claims that it's rude to break into another person's house. Judging by how he seemingly put both his wife and daughter into robots and is now apparently reconstructing his house within the facility, I think it's pretty safe to say that Ronaldo's motivations for his actions are to get his family back, no matter the means. Dan heads down the hall and finds the bedroom from FNAF 4. Though, for a kid's room, it's really secure. The thing has iron doors, for goodness sake. Ronaldo walks down the hall, triggering Dan to shut the door in his face. Ronaldo says that Dan found Michael's room. Remember Michael? Yeah, he's not in this season. Dan flees the scene, finding his way back to the door that leads to the boarded up door. Ronaldo claims that he needs Dan's soul, that it's the purest one he's seen. How egotistical to give yourself a pure soul. Shame on you, Daniel. Dan wonders if these are the doors that are supposed to open at 6 a.m. Though this doesn't do Dan much good, as he still needs to survive for 2 more hours. Dan decides to hide in the bedroom and does so till 5 a.m. until he notices the closet doors at the front of the room. Dan opens them only to find the nightmare just waiting in there. Dan quickly slams the doors closed before rushing out of the bedroom. With only 1 hour to go, Dan decides to hide under the desk at the security checkpoint. Ronaldo's voice echoes throughout the facility. He tells Dan that he might have outrun the clock, but there's still time. Which is a dumb line that I really like. He tells Dan that he will still experience his torment, that he will save his wife. Ronaldo enters the checkpoint and thankfully doesn't find Dan, though as he leaves, he tells Dan that he will die. As it finally turns 6 a.m., Dan leaves the desk and tries to sneak past Ronaldo. He fails immediately as Ronaldo sees him and starts to give chase. Dan runs into the crate room and Ronaldo threatens to rip his soul out. Dan goes back into the door that leads to a door and breaks the barricade. Don't know why he didn't do that before, but whatever. Ronaldo screams that Dan will not leave. Dan yells that he's getting out of there as Ronaldo says the line, Bard.
I'm getting out of here! I'm getting out of here!
Dan heads through the doors and finds a staircase leading up. He rushes up them as the camera fades to black. We then see Dan emerging from another pair of doors, coughing and gagging, as it appears Dan has wandered into a literal sewer. Dan wonders if he can find a way out through the sewer as the episode ends. Please don't turn into Shawshank now. Please, I beg you. Night 5! The night opens on a shot of Ronaldo calling out to Dan as he wanders through the house part of the facility. He reaffirms how they need his soul before finding the double doors Dan escaped through on night 4. He's in disbelief at how Dan was able to escape. The nightmare comes up from behind. Perfect timing, says Ronaldo, as he tells the nightmare to go after him. The nightmare does just that as we fade to Dan making his way up the stairs. Dan canonically climbs these stairs for an entire day, by the way, which is my favorite thing in this entire series. Dan sees a lamp on the table with the words, "Need a light?" written on the wall. Before Dan can think about the strange convenience that is this lamp, the nightmare appears in the doorway. Dan screams about how he wasn't there before he runs away. Dan rushes into a security room and puts away his light to hide. Seeing the nightmare still heading his way through the window, Dan once again hides under another desk. Is this like the theme of the series? Is this hide under the desk of the series? FNAF, the under the desk simulator? I'm kidding. But it feels like they figured out how to do that and then kept doing it because they thought it was cool. The nightmare enters the room, searching for Dan. As has happened every time Dan is hidden under the desk, the nightmare leaves the room with no Dan. Dan pops up from the desk and pulls the lamp back out. He notices that the nightmare was looking at something. He sees that he was looking at a lever next to a gate. Upon pulling the lever, nothing happens. Dan sees through the gate a door which reads generator. Dan crawls under the gate and steps into the generator room and finds a generator. What? No. Dan weighs the consequences of turning on the generator, noting how it'll alert everyone to his location. He decides to turn it on nonetheless and sees that yes, the generator was in fact very loud. Dan crawls back under the gate, and as he's headed to the door, he hears the nightmare approaching, leading him to hide under the desk again. The nightmare once again enters the room, but this time even sooner leaving than before. Dan chuckles to himself about how stupid it is as he sneaks his way out of there. Dan goes to check out another door, but when he opens it, he finds a skeleton! Boo! I don't know if it's because I'm watching this at 3:17 a.m. on June 12th, but it genuinely made me jump. Dan quickly shuts the door and nopes his way out of there. Dan heads the opposite way where he finds Ronaldo making his way towards him. Dan quickly rushes onto the sewage sidewalk, I don't know what to call it, okay? Parallel of the one Ronaldo is on. Dan runs through a newly opened door as Ronaldo screams for Dan to stop running away from him. Dan finds a ladder which he then climbs. As he makes his way to the top, he quickly grabs a bunch of crates and puts them over the hole. Ronaldo screams in a muffled haze that I'm not even gonna try and decipher. Dan notes how the moon is uber red right now. Wait, the moon? That's right, Dan has made his way to the surface. He's actually outside, and we didn't even need to recreate Shawshank. Dan is exuberant about this news. He's about to crawl under the gate, but notes how it appears to just lead into the wilderness. He wonders if he'd be better off just heading into the building, though notes how it's probably a bad idea. Which it is. Dan enters the building only to find Ant and the puppet, or the marionette, it's not made super clear. Ha! Get it? It's a reference to the bad joke I made in the first video that I wish I could remove. Ha ha! Ant informs Dan that he's almost done. He says that Dan needs to undo all of the torment Ronaldo has done, and that Ant isn't his first victim. This leads into Elizabeth, aka the puppet. Yeah, I'm settling on that, so what? Ant says that she's been helping him, that she wants this over just as much as they do. He says that she knows what the spirits want as well. Ant tells Dan to let her guide him. Dan, trusting his deceased friend, thanks Elizabeth for guiding him, I guess. I think this series would have been way more cohesive if Elizabeth was actually Golden Freddy, not only showing that she was guiding him the entire time, but also finally making Golden Freddy plot relevant. But Origins is too busy trying to eat the cake it doesn't have to use what it's building up. Ant warns about a spirit that has been there the longest, describing it to be quite aggressive. Ant tells Dan that if he can trick the spirits into thinking he's an animatronic, then he should be safe. Ant tells Dan to hurry as he heads off to hold off Ronaldo. Dan heads into the FNAF 2 location because, I'll talk about it later. Dan actually recognizes this place, realizing it's actually a Fazbear's restaurant. Dan opens a chest to his left where he finds a Fazbear mask. Dan decides to crawl through the vent after seeing Freddy down the hall. Dan exits the party room only to find Freddy looking towards the office. He slowly turns around. Dan backs up before Chica appears groaning as she does. Chica, however, walks past Dan while Freddy continues to stare down the hall. Dan finds that Freddy and Chica don't seem to even notice him. Foxy stands at the end of the hall, staring Dan down. Dan starts to head over to him before his perception of safety is shattered by Foxy sprinting at him, screaming the whole way. Dan quickly runs into the party room, where he scrambles to put on his mask. He gets it on just as Foxy rushes into the room. Thanks to the mask, Foxy can no longer see him. Before you can say, why doesn't Dan just keep the mask on? Freddy walks by and starts to walk towards Dan until he takes the mask off. So for anyone confused, Foxy like mask, Freddy no like mask. Dan searches for the puppet and finds her in one of the party rooms. She stands in the corner with a single present on the floor in front of her. Dan wonders if he has to give the animatronics the present. Seeing that the present is yellow, Dan assumes that it must be for Chica, the racist. Thankfully, Dan's problematic nature turns out to be right. Okay, nope, that joke ain't a keeper. Thankfully, Dan is right in his assumption, and upon giving Chica the present, she transforms into a crying child, and then into a normal child. Cheery music and colorful text appear as the child disappears. Dan is very confused as to what just happened, but it works, so he just goes along with it. Dan goes to look for the puppet again. Dan avoids Foxy again before finding the puppet in another party room. I mean, this entire building is for parties, so I guess everywhere is a party room. Dan takes another present, this one being blue. Dan states that he thinks Bonnie is blue, and that is all the discourse on Bonnie's color that will go down within this video. Dan searches the building for Bonnie, finding a boarded up room and Bonnie. Oh shoot, Bonnie! Dan gives Bonnie the present, leading to the same thing that happened to Chica happening to him. Dan doesn't get to celebrate at all as Foxy starts chasing him immediately after. Dan calls Foxy an annoying thing as Foxy leaves. Dan finds the puppet at the prize corner with a red gift this time. Dan gives the present to Freddy, freeing his soul. Dan is now left only with Foxy. Because of this, he just decides to keep the mask on as he searches for the puppet. Though as Dan tries to approach the puppet while wearing the mask, it screams at him, inspiring him to take it off. Dan takes the present as he heads off in search of Foxy. Dan is able to find Foxy peacefully standing in the parts and service room. Upon putting on the mask, Foxy turns into a crying child. Dan is able to give Foxy the present, freeing the last spirit. Dan does a little song and dance in celebration before looking for the puppet again. He heads back in search of Ant, but finds Ronaldo stepping through the door instead. Ronaldo asks Dan if he thinks he saved those souls, stating that Dan's soul is all he needs. Night 6. Ronaldo laughs at Dan as they stare each other down. Dan asks where Ant is, that he was supposed to hold him back. Ronaldo states that he was annoying to deal with, but brushing him off as nothing more than a overglorified Easter bunny, claiming he couldn't handle the full extent of his torment. Dan angrily asks what he did to Ant, with Ronaldo bluntly stating that Ant is dead. I mean, yeah, we saw him die like twice, but I guess the third time's the charm. I said the third time's the charm. I said the third time's the charm. Ronaldo says that he should have scooped the both of them from the start. Dan asks what he means, but Ronaldo simply tells him he'll find out soon enough. Baby enters behind Ronaldo as Dan runs in the opposite direction. He finds the Nightmare standing in the main hall and is once again forced to flee into the vent. Ronaldo taunts him, telling him to run like the filthy animal he is. Dan tries to hide but fails as Ronaldo finds him each time, with Dan's options being limited by the presence of Baby and the Nightmare. Dan jukes out Ronaldo again using some tables and hides in the parts and service room. Dan finds Spring Bonnie standing in the room, though Dan doesn't get much time to ponder on the thing as he realizes he needs to get out of there. Dan tries to head into the main room where he hears the puppet's music box begin to play. He looks behind him only to find a bloody Ant. Dan runs up to Ant, but then Ant begins to speak. He tells him that Ronaldo has won and he needs to give up, that he can't escape from this. Dan asks what happened to him, triggering this Ant to tell Dan that he did this to him, that he's dead because of him. Upon saying this, Ant disappears, revealing Ronaldo standing behind him. Dan books it into the main room. Dan sneaks around before finding the exit to the outside world. But of course, since we have like 7 more minutes to fill, the door is locked. As Dan jostles with the door handle, he begins to hear a phone ring. He finds the phone on the front desk and picks it up. Play the clip, I don't know how to describe this.
Hello? Nope, I'm out of this.
Man, telemarketers are weird at this universe. Dan heads back into the main room where he hears crying. He follows the sound to a room where he finds a crying child. Dan is confused by this as he thought that he freed all of them. The crying child starts to follow Dan. Dan wonders if the spirit is trying to help him out. He finds another crying child in the hall. Dan realizes that they can help him defeat Ronaldo. Upon realizing this, Dan calls out to Ronaldo cockily. Ronaldo appears but is frightened by the spirits. The spirits begin to chase him as Ronaldo runs away. Dan laughs maniacally as he watches his tormentor get tormented. Dan begins to mock Ronaldo. They chase Ronaldo into the parts and service room. We cut to a cinematic of the crying child slowly closing in on Ronaldo. And well, you know what happened. You know what? I'm just gonna play the clip. Because screw it. I don't get paid enough for this.
I know how these work. As soon as I get into this suit, they won't be able to see me. You will be dead. And there's nothing you can do.
Ronaldo, you're the one who's going to pay.
And how's that? You're blind to me now. And you can't do anything.
Wait, what? Oh, wait, hold on. With Dan bidding his final goodbye to Ronaldo, he walks off. Saying that his shift is complete would be an immense understatement. Oh, what the hell? Conclusion. With the end of Mnaf Origins, shockingly, I actually have a bit to say. This series really feels like they were trying to not only conclude the series, but also desperately trying to play catch up with the source material. I mean, we went through Sister Location of FNAF 4, FNAF 2, and a little bit of FNAF 3 in just one series. This series also has a bit of a redundancy problem. The best example of this being the constant hiding under desks. It's not severe, but it keeps happening, and I don't know if it's because I'm watching this series analytically, or I just got tired after a while. This series also barely makes sense, and not in the basic FNAF way of how the animatronics possess junk, but rather mainly in the map design. Starlight also has this issue, but not as severe. It really feels like he was just adding on and on to this initial facility, mainly because that's kind of what happened, at least judging by the building streams. Don't quote me on that, I'm just a Minecraft YouTuber, I don't take me too seriously. But yeah, I don't know if I like this series. I definitely don't hate it, but still, it feels like a mess. It has cool ideas, but they feel dragged out. It's a tad bloated to say the least. It feels like they wanted to have Dan journey deeper and deeper into this large and windy facility, which to be fair, is what canonically happened, but in practice it just felt like Dan going up and down the same slide over and over again for each episode. But this vision of constantly heading deeper and deeper into a large and windy facility would be realized, and also I love how the description says that maybe Candy will appear, but he never does. Starlight Revival, aka Season 5, is a bit of an interesting series. One, in that it's not actually canon. Two, in that it is a series built around the Starlight animatronics, which were an original creation by the FNAF Universe mod. And three, as in Dan and most people who worked on it hate the season. No, I'm not kidding. I mean, look at this clip from a Senary Saloon livestream.
You think Starlight was good or bad? Terrible. Worst series we did.
And from what I've seen, a lot of the fan base has a lot of mixed feelings about this series. One notion that I've seen around a bit is that the series has good ideas, but it fumbles on its execution of those ideas. And what do I think, you may be asking? Night 1. We open on a shot of Dan walking down a road, exhausted. Dan questions a phone person why they couldn't have just called him a cab, to which the man on the phone explains that whatever Dan is there for is supposed to be off the record. Dan finds that the gate is closed, which confuses the mystery voice emitting from the phone. He states that it was supposed to be left open. Dan asks the phone individual if he'd be able to climb up on the dumpster, though the cellular man tells Dan that officially he's supposed to tell him not to take any unnecessary risks, though unofficially he should use any way possible to get into the facility. Dan decides to climb up some vines, which the phone man says is a good idea. Dan hops over the fence. The phone person tells Dan to proceed inside, which Dan naturally complies with. We learn that the reason Dan is there is to clean up the place for Starlight Entertainment so that they can reopen the place at the end of the week. The phone man says that he has the utmost faith in Dan, and so do I. Dan reveals that he worked at a pizza place before, and he nearly worked in another factory, but decided not to take it on account of the phone call he received, which is a little nod to the first 2 seasons, but it is not important to the plot in the slightest. It's just fun. The guy phone tells Dan to head left into a locker room. Dan finds a cutely named Fazlight in a dramatically and conveniently placed locker bathed in red lights. Dan rightfully asks why Starlight Factory has a Fazbear branded flashlight, which the telephone guy states are probably leftovers from a previous establishment. He reveals that Starlight Factory serves as a sort of dumping ground and hub for old technology of older brands and restaurants. Dan heads through a pair of doors and finds Freddy and Foxy, though more specifically it is the Starlight variation of the characters, which, as stated before, are a fan creation via the team that created the FNAF Universe mod, which this series utilizes heavily. In canon, though, it is revealed that the Starlight Company went and slapped their name on the Fazbear animatronics. Dan says that he's already dealt with one set of malfunctioning animatronics and tells him he's out, which means that this series most likely takes place in a timeline where Season 2 never happened, though this series kinda wrecks that idea later on, but we'll get to that. Oh, we'll get to that. The man speaking through the iPod shuffle assures Dan that the animatronics are not malfunctioning. He reveals that they knew Dan could handle himself around the animatronics, and that's why he got the job in the first place. Dan is naturally pretty peeved about this since this wasn't what he originally agreed to do. Dan and the man speaking through the brick make a little compromise. He says that if he sees anything out of the ordinary, that he will immediately alert Dan. Dan heads deeper into the factory and notes how massive this facility really is. He comes across a closed gate. He asks the phone, okay, no, you cannot make me call him phone guy. He tells Dan that if he can find the power room, then he should be able to toggle the gate. Dan finds the breaker room, though the security puppet is stationed there for some reason. The guy on the Sprint mobile plan explains that it's a system that guards the factory and that Dan shouldn't have to mess with it, though he does tell Dan not to poke it. Dan flicks the breaker switch, which naturally causes the lights to swing on, though the guy on the phone interrupts the mild accomplishment with a uh-oh, revealing that the animatronics are no longer on the stage, with Dan's beautiful response,
Of course they're not!
he tells Dan to relax and that everything is under control. Bull. But I like his moxie, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Dan's phone call privileges expire, meaning that whole thing about control and moxie, never mind, throw it out the window. Dan remembers that since he pulled the breaker that the gate should be open and starts to head over there. But upon walking over, he finds that it just didn't, at all. Dan ends up hiding behind some crates when he sees that the animatronics are patrolling the area. Dan decides to head up to a room that seems to be lit. As he climbs the stairwell, he comes across a monitor room. And man, that sure doesn't seem important. He continues upwards and finds a room labeled Overseer. Upon entering, he finds a peaceful room. It even has a water dispenser. He finds a locked pair of double doors bathed in red light. He carefully makes his way down the stairs and gets startled by Freddy just standing there, menacingly. Dan makes his way back to the main room where he is jumped by Foxy, and man, I really need to stop writing the script late at night cause it got me again. For anyone wondering, it is currently 1:05 a.m., baby. Dan quickly flees into a kitchen type room. He ends up finding the Overseer's key in one of the kitchen cabinets. Dan wonders why it was in there, and fair, that is a little odd, but you've dealt with possessed robots, so shut up. He rushes back and, using his newfound key, he's able to open the doors. He finds that the security puppet is in the Overseer's room, somehow. In the room, he finds the computer. Using the computer, he's able to open the gates. On the wall, however, he finds a cassette tape player, one labeled The Overseer's Log.
I'm Overseer Mufflebuns. This is real bad. We can't let anybody know about what happened just now. The guy who reported it, gone and hid it in some room somewhere. I don't even know where, and I hope no one else does either. That way nothing happens, you know? We can't let anybody know about this.
Okay, yeah,
if
I don't
we
like
do,
that.
the whole factory's...
After Dan cuts off Hufflebuns, he turns around only to see that the security puppet is gone. Dan looks around to see where it went, only to see it looming behind him, where it attacks him. We cut to black where we fade in on Dan floating face down in water. The security puppet looks down at him, seemingly having been the one to throw him down. It wanders off as we cut to black. Night 2. We hear Daniel's phone ring as he continues to do whatever the opposite of a breath stroke is. We see his phone sitting on a pipe as it rings. He climbs up the pipe and answers, only to hear the wonderful voice of the telephone person, who reveals he's been trying to call Dan all day. Dan tells him that the security puppet threw him into the water. Dan climbs out of the hole. The phone person reveals that he's been knocked out all day. He tells Dan that the sooner he gets the factory up and running, the sooner he can get out of there. On brighter news, he's very hydrated. The Nokia N-Gage fellow sends Dan in search of something and says that he'll know what it is when he sees it. While he's speaking though, the disembodied voice showed a very noticeable cough. The iPhone 4 tells Dan that the elevator is straight ahead, though Freddy is blocking the way. Dan is able to avoid Freddy using the gates. Freddy ain't very bright in this series. Freddy just kinda gives up, leading to Dan thinking that he might just not be aggressive. Foxy chases Dan through some shelves as he scrambles to get to the elevator. Dan is able to get into the elevator and closes the door, which he then laughs at Foxy from the safety of. Foxy walks off and Dan fiddles with the elevator button, which he finds is not working. Which makes sense. The Verizon man tells Dan that he'll need to find parts in order to fix the elevator. He says the first thing Dan will need is a gear. Dan takes a left and finds a frickin' sweatshop. What the hell? Well, you know what they say, it's just good business. Seriously, why is this here? Dan heads through a broken window where he finds quite the scene. Within the room is a camera pointing at the back of a chair, and the wall is, of course, painted in splattered blood. Fun stuff. Dan waves at the nameless man through the camera, which made me chuckle. Dan finds some elevator washers on the wall. Don't know why they're there, but it's one of the things Dan needs, so I guess that's good. Neither Dan nor the telephone man are actually even sure as to what they do. Now that Dan has the washers, all they need is a gear and a pipe. I'm surprised he doesn't need lint as well. Also, it's a good touch that the phone person sounds like he's rummaging around through papers and stuff while he's telling Dan what to do. It's my immersion! Dan asks the Verizon Orbit Journey L, can you tell that I'm running out of names yet? Why there's a broken window, and that someone should fix that. Though, he reminds Dan that's kinda why he's there. And like, yeah, fair point. Dan tells him about the tape recorder he found. He says it sounds like some pretty incriminating evidence. Though, strangely enough, Dan is told to keep it safe, which naturally confuses him, but he does so anyway. He heads back to the hole and ends up finding a room he didn't notice before. He also finds a Rubik's Cube, resting on a radiator for some reason. Surprised it hasn't melted. Dan follows the conveyor belt in search of assorted nonsense, though around the corner he sees a weird crackhead looking puppet. It also has a backpack, I think. Little puppet off to school, so proud. Though strangely enough, the guy on the phone can't see it, which is a little concerning. More importantly, it also appears to be guarding the elevator wire. Dan quickly grabs the wire and slowly backs away, though when he turns around, the puppet begins to move closer to him, accompanied by a fittingly distorted tune. Though when he looks back, it stops in its tracks. Well, it doesn't have tracks, it's like elevating or something. The phone man, I'm settling on that because this joke is getting old, proposes that Dan might just be imagining another puppet. He assures Dan that there's no animatronic following him. Bull. The phone man Nokia person leads Dan to the projector room and says that that's where the gear is. Dan breaks the projector, which for some reason had the elevator gear. Well, I suppose it's just a nondescript gear. Now Dan should be able to repair the elevator. Yeah! Dan looks out the door and sees the puppet just standing ominously in the dark. How fun. The phone man says he'll check around again for the thing, but states that he's starting to get worried about Dan. Aw, what a considerate fellow. He's precious and I'm this close to just saying his name, but I'm too deep into this unfunny bit. Dan claims that he thinks Freddy might be his bro now and goes up to him. Freddy does nothing but stare at him, so yeah, he's cool. The phone man coughs again and Dan suggests that he get a lozenge. I really like their dynamic. I really like this series. Ooh, spoilers! Foxy, of course, shows up, seemingly hiding in a room. Foxy then phases through the wall. Listen, if Dan can point it out, then so can I. Dan makes it into the elevator and throws all the stuff in it. He presses the button right before Foxy gets in. With the elevator operational, now Dan can... Wait, something's off. The phone man stops responding, and then the elevator starts to shake. It looks terrible, but it's definitely shaking. The phone man chimes in quickly, stating that the elevator cable snapped. He tells Dan to brace himself as the elevator plummets. The phone man attempts to call out to Dan as we see Dan slowly reawaken. He cries out that Dan can't be dead. Dan waddles over to the phone and picks it up, stating that he's there and asks if he can hear him. Sadly, the phone man cannot as he's breaking up. Eventually, he just stops responding. Dan climbs up on top of the elevator. The phone man asks Dan a question, though it's unintelligible. Dan finds himself in the elevator shaft and sees a pair of double doors. He heads through them and is finally able to talk to the phone man again, albeit with a bad signal. He asks him for the color on the walls, with Dan responding that it's yellow. The phone man sounds concerned, which confuses Dan. He states that he didn't want this to happen, which Dan rightfully says is scaring him. The phone man realizes that the others were trying to save Dan. He tells Dan that he's in grave danger. He claims that Dan has entered her domain. Before Dan can ponder on this, he is brutally attacked by a withered Foxy. If you ask me, it's the gear's fault. That thing was from a goddamn projector, no wonder it wouldn't work for an elevator. Night 3. This episode came out on Christmas. Night 3 starts with some really cool moody establishing shots, especially this one of the elevator. It's foreboding and cool. Does a great job at setting the mood. We get to see a shot of Dan's phone, with someone, presumably phone man, trying to call it. We then see Dan brutally beat up, with claw marks having been ripped through his shirt and skin. Scandalous. Dan calls out to the phone dude, yeah, I'm switching it up, so what? Dan checks his pockets to find that, no joke, Foxy legit mugged him, which is really funny. I love how Dan is literally on the verge of death. Not in that way, but in the way that it really shows that there are serious stakes to the story. Like, oh my god, the funny caveman guy is going to die. Dan finds a door labeled Yellow Division. Dan tries the other side and finds a door that reads Medical Wing. That is so unbelievably convenient, and nothing can possibly go wrong. He opens the door, and of course it's blocked off, so scratch what I said. Dan turns around only to see Freddy coming out of the Yellow Division. Freddy walks past Dan and is somehow able to walk through all the rubbish blocking the way to the medical wing. Much to Dan's and my confusion, this phasing through walls thing is getting a little iffy, not gonna lie. Dan climbs up a ladder and is able to see a way into the medical division. Though, at one point, he ends up falling into water, which just so happens to be salt water, which is, as you can imagine, very incredibly pleasant on Dan's literally open wounds. That is, whatever the opposite of convenience is, it's really funny. When Dan makes it through, he finds the security puppet and a bloodstain. And clearly there's no relation there. I don't know, why do we even kid ourselves? Dan heads through the door and finds a large room. He heads through one and finds a room with beds, syringes, for defibrillators, heart monitors. He also finds a chalkboard mastermind, specifically Dan finds the weird, scuffed Freddy standing in a corner. He slowly backs out of it, but Freddy starts to follow him. Dan is unable to run as a symptom of getting mauled. Dan quickly hides in a bathroom and waits quietly for Freddy to pass. When he hears Freddy close the entrance door, he makes a break for the next door. Though, is it really making a break for something if you're limping? Dan stepped into a room that's actually well lit for once, and finds a tape labeled Ryan's Log.
Ryan, I can't keep prescribing you sleeping medication. You know that.
I can't help it, Doctor. Whenever I close my eyes, I just see her. And the blood.
Don't you think you might feel better if you confessed to someone besides me?
Maybe. I can't think about this right now. I just want to sleep.
I'll prescribe you some melatonin supplements. Make sure you actually report the incident to someone after you're well rested.
Thanks, Doc.
Dan, for some reason, doesn't pay much mind to the tape and quickly gets excited over a flashlight. I mean, it's pretty dark. I guess a flashlight is pretty cool. But yeah, anyways, the voice on the tape is the same as the phone dude, meaning that his name is Ryan. Finally, I can stop coming up with stupid names, I can just call him Ryan. But what did Ryan do or witness that's gotten him so messed up? Who's he seeing? Dan finds a chest with some Pain Be Gone in it. Upon drinking the Pain Be Gone, Dan immediately feels so much better, I guess you could say. Dan exits the room, now being able to go more than 0.5 miles an hour. Dan avoids Freddy and heads back to where he started, where he finds that the security puppet is not in its box, but rather to the side waiting for Dan. Dan is unable to get out of the room in time and is jumped by the puppet. We see the security puppet watching over Dan's incapacitated, bloody body. We then cut back to Dan's phone, still sitting on the table. Ryan's voice emits from the phone, telling whoever's on the other end that they need to stop this, asking if they even remember who they are. He calls out to Veronica before getting cut off by a torn up Foxy hanging up the phone. Tormented Foxy looks up with a haunted, distorted, childlike laughter as the episode ends. Night 4. We enter on a shot of, oh dear God, another research and development room. It's a curse, I tell you! A curse! Well, it's actually the Research and Development Foundry, so I'll give it a pass. We see that the puppet has actually bandaged up Dan's wounds. I guess they're trying to make up for that whole throwing him into a hole thing. Dan sees that he's actually above the room where he got his insides turned into his outsides. Dan notices a chest, and as he opens it, he finds the Fazlight, his favorite. He cared more about it than the tape. Oh my god, it's the Fazlight! It was actually called a torch in the last episode, but literally no one except me cares, so I'll let it slide. He also finds a Freddy head and a cryptic note. And not a cryptic note as in I'm describing the note, as in the note is literally called Cryptic Note. I love this freaking series, dude. Play the clip since Dan reads a lot better than me. Also, I'm lazy.
Well, let's read it. She can only find you one sense at a time. Who's she? Be careful and make it out of the yellow sector. She's watching, she's listening, everything is her.
Okay, shut up, Dan. This is my video. The puppet patching him up is kind of dumb, and I can't say I'm the biggest fan. Like, I understand that they needed Dan in good condition for the next episode, but still. Dan enters the door that reads Yellow Division and finds a ladder. Upon climbing the ladder, he finds a hallway leading to a single door. The research and development. It's okay, Aspestose. It's a foundry this time. It's different. He enters a room only to find a pirate's cove for some reason, but more importantly, Dan finds his best friend Foxy sitting in the cove. Oh shoot, Foxy! Foxy sprints out of the cove towards Dan. They have a fun little chase across the catwalk. It's not as good as the tunnel chase from Mnaf 3, because that's like peak, but it's pretty good. Dan even cackles at Foxy as he makes his way to the other side. Getting a little cheeky there, eh, Dan? He finds a crate labeled security gear, and upon looking inside, he finds a security skirt, which naturally excites him, though this is technically Dan's first experience with the skirt, which, in my opinion, makes it even more wholesome. I guess Dan is just destined to wear skirts that protect him. Gotta say, not the worst destiny I've ever seen. Dan heads through a door and finds a corpse. Hold on. Looming at the end of the hall is Shadow Bonnie. Oh shoot, hey Anthony, how's it going? Oh yeah, alternate continuity, I forgot. Shadow Bonnie's inclusion is something I'm not the biggest fan of, seeing as it makes no sense. Dan finds another quirky little cassette, this one labeled Why.
Why do they keep the hatches to the drainage ditches unlocked? This is the third time this week Pete from R&D has fallen through. Surprised he hasn't broken something important yet. You'd think that after that incident with the girl, management would want to make things safer.
I might become...
The most important thing of note from that tape is that something happened to a little girl. Dan encounters the tormented puppet, whom he mistakes for the security puppet, though he is quickly corrected. Dan checks the cryptic note again and wonders if maybe the puppet can only see him. To test this, he plops on the Freddy head, and to his surprise, this actually works, and the puppet doesn't seem to notice him anymore. Dan walks through the double doors on his left and finds Golden Freddy. He jump scares Dan. Once again, we find Mnaf using Golden Freddy for no reason. This series has a weird obsession with using Golden Freddy for the sake of it. He's never important to the plot, and he's even less so. Sitting in some water, he finds Phantom Freddy just taking a dip, I guess. Yet another character that doesn't really make sense here. Did we switch continuities while I wasn't looking? What's happening? Dan heads up some stairs where he finds a little room. And it's got bloodstains, so you know it's bougie. He finds another tape, this one labeled Ducts.
Ducks.
So yeah, it's supposed to keep the ducts clear of entrails, whatever that means. This place is a factory.
Oh, they can crawl around the ducts too?
Well, I
Great.
guess it's just to keep what happened to that girl a few months back from happening
that's
again.
so much blood. Okay.
I heard the company had to decommission 5 animatronics after, well, you know.
Well,
Once again, a girl is mentioned. Something clearly happened to her, but what exactly we don't know. Also, we hear of 5 animatronics being decommissioned, but don't worry, almost nothing in that tape is built upon. Dan finds an elevator at the end of the room, though he is unable to use it since he needs a key to open it. After a bit of searching, Dan finds what looks like the remains of a makeshift home, really showing how everyone seemingly got trapped in here. Next to the bed, he finds a chest with the elevator key in it. He heads back to the elevator and finds that Shadow Bonnie is seemingly guarding it. He heads into the elevator room to try and come up with some kind of plan of action, but he is quickly interrupted as his back is slashed by the puppet. He quickly gets the key in and punches the elevator button right before Shadow Bonnie reaches him. I love this. It shows how the animatronics are acting intelligently to kill Dan, jumping him when he thinks he's got the upper hand. We cut to black before seeing Dan emerge back up on the main floor. We zoom in on a door as we see a gored up Freddy standing in a room. Hey guys, Locked.zip here. Wait, no I'm not. We see Dan stepping out of the elevator and he notices that something is off. The entire place has changed. Wait, who put this elevator here? This is a pretty good hook, with everything having changed while he was in the depths of the facility. We see the same door from the end of the last episode, and we also see the same mangled up Freddy sitting with his head down. A motion detector alert goes off, triggering him to look at a monitor where he sees Dan walking along the catwalk. Ryan calls out to Dan. He tells Dan to come over here. Really not being that descriptive there, pal. Dan finds his way back to the monitor room. See, I told you it was important. Actually, I think I told you it wasn't important, but I was winking when I was saying that. I'm sure you heard it. From the other side, he hears Ryan claiming that Veronica trapped him in there. Dan goes off in search of a crowbar. He finds the puppet. Dan quickly pops on his mask and... Okay, let's talk. Starlight Revival, as much as I love it, from a production standpoint, was a nightmare, leading to a lot of people who worked on it, specifically Mr. Man Films himself, to consider it not only the worst season, but also stating that it probably shouldn't have been made in the first place. And this episode really suffers from this the most. It feels rushed and poorly thought out in pretty much every place. And this mask thing feels like a snippet of that mess. I mean, he doesn't even put the thing on. It's all just so desultory. Back to the plot. We'll touch more on that later, Kay? Dan finds the crowbar. Dan decides to lure over Shadow Bonnie and then uses that distraction to safely head back to Ryan. This is fun. I like how Dan genuinely finds a way to outsmart the animatronic. It's fun. It really is. I just wish I had more nice things to say about this night. Spoilers, I don't. Dan breaks the barricade as Ryan warns Dan to try and not be too surprised when he enters. Before him stands a towering animatronic. Before him stands Ryan. Dan asks what happened to him, why he's like this. Ryan simply gives Dan a name. Veronica. She did this to him a long time ago. He reveals that their boss thought it would be a good idea to have a bring your child to work day. He explains how Veronica had run off from the rest of the group and made her way to the hydraulics section. That while he was doing his job, he suddenly heard a squish. Veronica had crawled onto the conveyor belt and gotten, well, you know. She was reported missing that night, and they found her blood dripping off of Ryan's press. When she was crushed, she got mixed in with all the animatronics, being the reason she has control over so many of them. There's a literal piece of her inside of each of them. And now, because of all that, she won't let anyone leave the factory. When Ryan tried, yeah. He believes that if they gather all the parts Veronica is binded to, then they might be able to finally put an end to her and escape. Ryan tells Dan that they need to destroy the animatronics she has the strongest connection to. He notes how the puppet that's been following Dan around appears to be her eyes, and that Shadow Bonnie seems to be how she hears. He believes that due to Freddy's passive nature, he might be her heart, though he's not really sure about Foxy, but they're definitely the most aggressive. He tells Dan to stun the animatronics long enough to reach inside and remove the corrupted component. You'd think Ryan would come with Dan to help, right? Well, he doesn't. Dan sneaks up on Shadow Bonnie and decides to just beat the thing up with a crowbar until it drops a human ear. Somehow, it works and spits out the bloodied human ear. Well, that's freaking lame. Remember when I said this series had like cool stakes? Well, those go out the window this night because Dan just beats up the animatronic. What? 1 down, 3 to go. Dan finds the phantom puppet lurking around, but before he can strike, Foxy interrupts. Hey, you'll get your turn! Dan stumbles into a room and finds a lever labeled Reroute Foundry, and for the sake of plot convenience, he decides he should pull it. He finds that the water at the bottom of the hole has been changed to lava. Dan throws the mangled ear into the lava. Dan finds Freddy wandering aimlessly about, though upon seeing Dan, it starts shambling towards him. Freddy is significantly more beat up and much more aggressive. Dan strikes Freddy down, finding a corrupted heart where it once stood. Dan makes his way back to the foundry, and upon seeing the puppet, he formulates a scheme in his mind. He lures it into the foundry and onto the trapdoors. Once they're on them, he opens them, casting the puppet down into the lava below. Foxy chases Dan all the way back to Ryan. He panically tells Ryan that he had nowhere else to go as he runs past him. Ryan holds her off, stunning her long enough for Dan to retrieve the part. Foxy drops the brain, representing the tainted and spiteful memories. Foxy actually accidentally picks them back up, startling Dan, and it's very funny. You know, this all could have gone by much quicker if Ryan just, helped. Now, with all the corrupted body parts, Dan and Ryan make their way back to the forge in order to destroy Veronica once and for all. Upon throwing each part into the lava, Ryan claims that something isn't right. Upon saying this, emerging from the forge is Phantom Mangle! I said Phantom Mangle! I said— For real, I have no idea why Phantom Mangle shows up. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I know I already made the, like, did we switch continuities joke? But, like, did we, though? Like, what is happening? Ryan tells Dan to seal up the pressure gauges to blow up the factory. Ryan tells Dan not to worry about him, and that it was a pleasure meeting him. Ryan, no. Dan seals the gauges and sprints towards the exit. Upon reaching it, however, he finds that it's a dead end. He looks behind him as Phantom Mangle attacks him, and he screams. Dan shoots awake in his bed. We did not just Mario 2 this. He hears his phone ring. Upon answering it, Dan seems relieved to speak to the person. He seems overjoyed upon hearing that they're well enough to be let out again. He skips out the door as he says that he can't wait to see Ant again. Wait, I thought Ant died! Oh god. Conclusion. Starlight is freaking great. Well, most of it is anyway. Starlight is a story that suffered from some behind-the-scenes issues, its plot suffering the most. But the first 3 episodes are great, and the 4th is solid. The 5th is bad, no ifs, ands, or buts. I love how Starlight is set up like a legit horror game, with objectives and such. I love the atmosphere it achieves. I love how this series feels like it has actual stakes, with the elevator crash and Dan being put within an inch of his life by Foxy. I adore how it did something original with his plot, having nothing to do with original FNAF lore beyond the animatronics. The pacing is solid and Dan is always doing something new. Starlight is fun and fresh, and I love it for that. But it also has issues. A lot of issues. For example, when Dan is listening to the tape recordings, which have incredibly important information, Dan just doesn't react to them. This is because Dan couldn't actually hear the tapes in real time, but he barely even tries to fake it. The series ends up using random characters that just don't make sense. Shadow Bonnie, Phantom Freddy, who literally just stays in one room, Golden Freddy, who is part of a bigger issue that this series has of just putting Golden Freddy in like he has any relevance to the plot, especially here. And don't even get me started on Phantom Mangle and that ending. They should have just committed to the alternate timeline they had going. For those who don't know, this series takes place where Mnaf 2 would have taken place. This finale is rushed and has no stakes. I mean, Dan literally beats all the animatronics to death with a crowbar. It's rushed and it's clear how deeply they no longer wanted to work on this series, which can't be showcased better than how this series ends with a teaser for the next season, ultimately making the journey of this series just a drug-induced fever dream that was nothing more than a filler until the next season. But despite all that, I still love this series. It really makes you wonder what could have been. It's a true shame that most people will never care to know. Most people. And if there's one thing I'm not, it's most people. So I did some investigative journalism. Okay, fine, I just spoke with DEG Incarnate, who was the original writer for the story, to find out. Also, fair warning, this is all gonna be super scatterbrained because I do not know how to organize myself. One of the most important things to be planned would be the fact that originally, Foxy was supposed to be the main antagonist. Foxy was meant to be the center of conflict within the series. The series was mostly faithful up until Night 4. Ryan originally was to be found in the Yellow Division, which for anyone who forgot, was where Dan's elevator crashed. Originally, Dan's first meeting with Ryan in person would have been similar to GLaDOS, as in, Dan would enter the room and then Ryan would just be there, as a "so that's what you look like" kind of moment. Ryan would have been found in a cramped room inside of his Fredbear suit. He was originally dragged through the vents into the room, where he'd been trapped. Speaking of the Yellow Division, the majority of the series was actually meant to take place there, which Dan sadly ended up changing. Dan wasn't actually supposed to return to the Red Division, which is the beginning area. Speaking of divisions, Red was the factory floor, Blue was marketing, and Yellow was R&D. Ryan saw hallucinations of the child after the incident, which was sadly downplayed in the series itself, but this explains Ryan's log. Speaking of logs, initially after the tape about the ducts, Foxy was supposed to come out of the vent, causing Dan to hide in the locker, which would make that tape make exponentially more sense. Along the way, Dan was meant to solve puzzles throughout the factory, really playing up the horror game aspect. though they never got a chance to develop them. One of these was supposed to be the water tubes, which Dan was supposed to navigate through in order to progress. Sadly, though, they were never fully realized and were just left with the husk. Speaking of things that were never fully developed, at the end of each night, there were supposed to be safe rooms, which I'm actually glad those weren't, because that would have been kind of dumb. The animatronics themselves were supposed to be more intelligent in comparison to Origins, which got carried over somewhat. On the topic of animatronics, initially the animatronics were supposed to be solely the Starlight animatronics and not the odd mishmash. Bonnie was sight and Chica was hearing. Chica would have had no eyes because it was cool. The Freddy mask wasn't originally planned to show up in the series at all. Originally, at the end of the series, Dan and Ryan would have decided to burn the factory down, and when they would have exited the place, they would have found it was snowing, and this would have implied that Dan had actually been in the facility for months. Plus, the fire would have contrasted with the snow excellently. When Dan and Ryan would have stepped out, Ryan would have been pulled back in by Foxy. Ryan would have held off Foxy and all the other animatronics, and as he shut the door, he would have apologized to Foxy's spirit and gave a heartfelt goodbye to Dan and thank him. Now, you may be asking yourself, why the hell did none of this happen? This is really cool and awesome and it's cool. Did I mention it was cool? Well, drama and personal stuff led to DEG eventually deciding to leave the project, telling Dan to do whatever the hell he wanted with Starlight, and sadly Dan didn't take the story in a very good direction in my opinion. The dream stuff was terrible, to be honest. It is one of the dumbest cliches, like, ever. It's a real shame that the original plans for the series weren't used, which is why I'm starting my petition. Signed today. Starlight Revival, Snyder Cut, or DEG Cut? Snyder Cut's funnier. Sign the petition. We'll have it plastered all over screens in Times Square. We'll show Mr. Man Films that this is something we want. And if you're still iffy on Starlight, I implore you to rewatch those first 3 episodes. They're really good, and if the last 2 nights were better, then this could have been the best Mnaf. But sadly, we don't live in that alternate reality. Unless this is a dream. Hi. I know that a lot of you are going to be upset about this, but this is the Senary segment. It's basically just the conclusion. No plot summary, because I'm sorry, but I've been working on this for so long, and I just can't anymore. What is it? There's nothing really pushing me through other than finish it. But I don't have any strong opinions upon Senary. I had a lot of passion to make people appreciate Starlight, and I just wanted to complain about Origins. But Senary, just Senary Saloon. Everyone knows that one, there's not really an argument to be made here, So I'm just gonna leave the conclusion in here. I'm sorry. A lot of you are going to be disappointed, and that is completely fair. Senary Saloon is really good. That's inarguable. It has a great story that is really well told. The hook of Ant being alive is genuinely fantastic, and the mystery is super well done. The incorporation of Remnant is really fantastic. Honestly, this series handles some of the official lore better than the actual series. Oh, and the map is great. Genuinely great. The saloon really feels lived in, as if this were a real restaurant. The animatronics have a great design, especially Bar Hop Bonnie, and the salvage sheds have such great atmosphere. Also, it was great to see Ant in the series again, despite all this, I still do have one criticism of this series, and it spans for the entire run, and that's its pacing. And I don't mean from a writing standpoint, because that stuff's great, I mean from a gameplay standpoint. Senary Saloon really does its best to feel like a real game, having Dan basically be playing his own little fan game. But that's also the issue. You see, this series really overcorrects the issue that Origins and Starlight had, where they aren't like the games at all. Dan doesn't have an office and he just walks around, which is fair, I think there could be a good balance, but there just isn't. These nights are around 20 minutes long each, and it's just Dan looking at the cameras as Dan and Ant occasionally talk, and their conversations are great, but it's not enough to make up for the uninteresting visuals. If they were going to have Dan go back to staying in the office, they could have at least made the nights shorter, like in Factory. But no, and it's not like the animatronics get more aggressive, they just stay at the same level of aggression. Not enough is happening on screen to warrant these night lengths. It especially bugs me because it hinders the storytelling a tad. But despite all this, I adore this series, and if they were to end it here, I'd be completely fine, and it's totally not because I don't want to make another retrospective. Hey, I'm so sorry this took so long, especially considering the finale. I've been a mess. Mnaf means a lot to me, even though I'm not super into it now. So I really wanted to do it justice, which led to why this video is so long. Thank you to Dan and Ant for, making the series, you know. And thanks to DEG Incarnate for being a cool fellow and for being a reminder that I actually had to finish this. Now, if you excuse me, I have to not be here now. Love you, bye. Mwah.